dreamless, sleep again.
Dave Matthews, Cry Freedom. Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. The War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting on over 700 stations on Pacifica and NPR and Low Power FM and college and community stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations and both TV satellite networks. Dish Network, Channel 9415, Free Speech TV, 9410 Link TV, and on DirecTV, Channel 375. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Our headlines also available in Spanish in transcript form for anyone to read and in audio form for radio stations. Over 200 radio stations are running our daily headlines. We turn now to the Olympics in China. As sports fans around the world keep their eyes on the tally in Beijing, another numerical feat continues to grow almost daily. Members of the group Students for a Free Tibet say 28 of their activists have now been deported or detained since the Games opened last week. The students have taken part in several protests. Last Wednesday, a Free Tibet banner was briefly draped near the Olympic Stadium. 2 days later, 3 were arrested for waving the Tibetan flag and recreating the Black Power salute just before the opening ceremonies. On Saturday, protesters were arrested both at the Olympic Stadium and at Tiananmen Square, where 5 people draped themselves on Tibetan flags and held a symbolic die-in. On Sunday, 5 were arrested after unfurling a banner reading, "Tibetans are dying for freedom." I'm joined now by 2 activists who just returned from the United States after being deported from China. John Hocevar is founder of Students for Free Tibet, and Noel Hidalgo is an activist and self-described citizen journalist. He goes by the nickname Noneck. He used his cell phone to film most of the footage of the protests shown across the world. John Hocevar and Noel Hidalgo join us here in the Firehouse studio. John, can you talk about what you were involved in China, how you got there, and what protests you were part of?
Sure. Well, we arrived just on a normal tourist visa. We were there because China's been trying to use the Olympics to legitimize the occupation of Tibet and to whitewash the human rights record. We felt it was important to do what we could to make sure that the truth got out.
So what did you do?
Well, we've been organizing protests almost every day over the past week in Beijing, starting with the banner hang that you saw right in front of the famous Bird's Nest National Stadium.
Explain what this banner hang was.
Well, so we had people climb these 2 very large poles right across from the Bird's Nest, and they read in English and Chinese, "Free Tibet, Tibet will be free," and then sort of riffing off the motto a little bit, one world, one dream, free Tibet.
And what happened?
Well, they were able to stay up for a little while because once they get off the ground, they can't be grabbed quite so easily. Finally, the trucks came and the activists came down of their own accord and were immediately deported. And that's been the case with every demonstration over the past week. As soon as the law enforcement was able to get to people, they were taken out pretty quickly.
What other protests were you involved with?
A couple days later, on Saturday in Tiananmen Square, this one for me was one of the most powerful that I've been a part of. There was a die-in right in the heart of Tiananmen Square, one of the world's most powerful symbols of nonviolent resistance. And there was a very large crowd of Chinese bystanders standing around watching. And outside of that, actually, there were uniformed police that had, for whatever reason, were not intervening. So it went on for close to 15 minutes. Before people were escorted out of the square and again deported.
Noneck, can you talk about your citizen journalism, what you've been doing and what you have filmed in China?
Sure. For the past year, I've traveled around the world just using the tools at my disposal, like this cell phone. And in China, I used the software called QIK, that allowed me to stream live onto the internet and show these protests as they were happening in real time to the rest of the world.
Talk about some that you filmed and that others filmed got to see.
Sure. The footage that you just saw of the banner hang was filmed by many different people, Chinese and Western journalists that were there, as well as other tourists that happened to be in the area. And the amazing part is that it got to the point that any Westerner would be actually yelled and screamed at and assaulted for filming any one of these protests, whereas any Chinese individual, it was okay for them to go ahead and film.
I want to play some of protest that was captured on a cell phone. I think we can roughly hear some of this protest. Let's roll the tape.
Right now, over 1,000 Tibetans are in on the occupation of Tibet and ongoing human rights abuses by the Chinese government in Tibet. With the world's attention on China, we ask that you please free Tibet, that the time is now for a free Tibet, that with the world's attention on China, that we speak out, and as people of conscience, we've traveled here to do so today.
Noneck, can you tell us about this? It was captured on a cell phone.
Yeah, it was streamed live to the internet, and just using this particular phone, this Nokia, allowed me to broadcast right to the internet. And over 30,000 people have seen this particular video. And what's most interesting about this particular protest is that it just not only involved Students for a Free Tibet, the particular die-in, but I was also able to capture a undercover security officer assaulting a CBC reporter who had been credentialed. His passport was pickpocketed right as the protesters were being taken in to be detained. They were assaulted. This photographer was assaulted and his passport pickpocketed. Eventually, he did get his passport back, but it showed the highlight that the police have been brutal against the fact that Westerners documenting these particular things are refusing to allow for an open and free media.
And when did the authorities catch you, deport you, or did they stop you each time at each protest?
I was not stopped. I was actually I was harassed by local Chinese every single time. I was told that I was a demon, I was a devil for showing China in this particular light because they saw me capturing this footage. On the third protest where the students unfurled their banner at the ticket office where John and I were both detained, I just happened to have a high-definition consumer camera, and I was thrown up against the wall, my arm was twisted behind my back, and I was subsequently detained for being a Westerner who was capturing this footage. I wanted to show the rest of the world what exactly was going on in China.
Your final time detained before you were deported, where were you held? Did you get to speak to those who were holding you? John?
They basically commandeered the first available room, so they took over a ticket office and